Alright, here we go. Okay, so, did anyone play the Overwatch 2 premiere? No? I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. The servers were broken the entire first day of this game, and recent patches have caused it to stop launching for a solid third of the player base, if not more entirely. I kid you not, it launched, then immediately died. I normally throw around the word stillborn for games that I dislike, personally, or were ill-advised. But in this case, it is no less than apt, as it took less than an hour and the damn game was literally non-functional on multiple layers. So far as I can tell, there are rumors of there being a DDoS attack against the Overwatch 2 servers, which isn't uncommon, but I'm going to be blunt here. Most servers these days have DDoS protection included, and the fact these evidently didn't is appalling. However, there is a slightly more logical and likely explanation. Negligence. So far as I can tell, login servers for this game can only handle around 40,000 entrants at a time and absolutely crap out when more than that overload them. Add to that some in-game glitches that force someone to log in again after kicking them out of a match, and you suddenly have a flood that never stops. Garrett, Jacob, and I experienced this glitch no less than 4 times just trying to play, and waited a total of 3 hours in queue to see how long things would take to play a game. You know, for science. The other issue on that side is that the only operational server of the 3 was the Asian one on premiere day, with the US and EU regions not accepting any players whatsoever. However, for some reason, certain streamers, etc., appeared to be able to access those servers with less than 5 minutes wait time for login. Very suspect. Oh, I'm not done either. Account merging for thousands was absolutely broken, not allocating them things they had purchased or erasing unlocks that were promised to players on launch. This is unabashedly the worst possible launch I could have imagined, and makes me wonder if Blizzard even wanted anyone to play Overwatch 2 at all. As in, even in this crisis, for what was supposed to be their flagship, Blizzard has stayed almost silent, seemingly prioritizing broken skins and content within Overwatch 2 instead of fixing the server login and lockout issues. And that includes now limiting replies to their known issues thread. Nice choice, guys. What a damn travesty. I do want to make sure one thing is clear when I say things with this severity. This game is little more than a spit shine of the original, with some graphical changes, very few in all honesty, and hitboxes designed by Van Gogh, as in borderline abstract, barely in the correct shape or proportions. This is truly Overwatch 1.1, not Overwatch 2, and now it operates on a free-to-play plan, with a purchasable battle pass. I'll hit on that in a bit, as I have to find all the points that Overwatch 2 scattered all over the place, along with my ever-waning, fractured sanity. Okay, so let's start with general gameplay, and I feel like this is necessary considering there have actually been a few changes. The aim of the devs has been to increase the speed of gameplay and decrease time to live, Call of Duty style. This has been done by targeting the tanks for some reason, removing one, as you all know, but this isn't the only thing. A recent update from the devs has made a statement about removing hard counters, as in a way to deal with a specific hero that's giving you trouble. This was part of the main gameplay in Overwatch, part of its very soul and heartbeat at times. Was there a Genji giving you issues? Change to Brig or Hog, maybe even Rhine if you're good enough. Tracer? Go McCree, because he will always be McCree. Reinhardt giving you pains? Go Orisa or Sombra. This has been changed with some pointed nerfs to several characters and buffs to others, which I will touch on one by one. The one upside I can find is that a good tank can stand alone thanks to rebalances of the healers and tanks from the beta of Overwatch 2, which I honestly figured was Blizzard only jingling their keys at players in an attempt to rob them blind after basically shutting them out of the development process, which was against the previous promises at the time. Luckily, healers can stand about as well as they would in Overwatch 1 before, and tanks have been buffed slightly to stand without a peer, like Zarya having 2 charges to her bubbles. I can't genuinely say I stand behind this, but at least they somehow barely managed to get the formula to work in some form, unlike the open beta, the one that charged you $40 to enter. First off, let's go over the class changes. Players retain 30% ult charge when changing heroes. honestly phooey on this. This was to keep people managing how much they switched originally, trying to find a counter instead of needlessly flip-flopping. A nice balancing game instead of this, which speeds up gameplay and actively encourages floppers. You know, the ones that would die once, change, die twice, change, die again, change, and never so much as find a groove in an entire match. All DPS get 25% movement speed and reload buff for 2.5 seconds whenever they get an elim. Refreshing. Honestly, this isn't a bad idea. I won't rag on this too much. It's at least interesting and gives them a little bit of a difference between the other heroes. Supports heal 15 HP a second after not taking damage for 1.5 seconds. Again, somewhat interesting and not broken because you can't just sit in a corner and heal all the way up. It's going to take a considerable amount of time to do so. However, they can now sometimes exist without a broadcast healer on the team. All extra health granting abilities are over health instead of health, armor, or shield. Honestly, I don't know why this was done. Things like Lucio's Bongos, Briggs' Rally, and Torb's Overheat were unique because they added specific types of health removed by different means and allowing different damage calculations. This removes the uniqueness of several abilities and really only means their basic playstyle is represented, without the benefits. Over health only grants 50% ult charge. Honestly, this should be 0 charge, in my opinion, as over health goes away after a bit anyway. However, the goal isn't to make people think twice about wasting time when shooting or be cerebral while playing. The goal is instead to speed up gameplay at all costs. Armor health reduces incoming damage by 30% instead of a base 5 per hit. This is smart. Good work. You did something that Homer Simpson could have figured out while he was high, drunk, flipped upside down, and half drowned in his backyard pool. The last attack that depletes a hero's armor will have its damage reduced by armor dynamically, with higher damage reduced less... What? I'm going to be honest, this seems unnecessary, but I think it works like wild shape health. If it's depleted past normal, the user takes more and more damage the higher the number was, which does make some sense, although this is overly complex in my opinion. Okay, now the individual heroes. I'll only really be going over the reworks, as the others barely change at all, and honestly some of the healers get much needed buffs, unless I personally was invested in the hero, or I think the change was interesting personally. Anna, Biotic Rifle increased to 15 rounds from 12, Sleep Dart cooldown increased to 15, Biotic Grenade cooldown reduced to 3 from 4 seconds. Honestly, the only issue with Anna to me is her deployment times, as they are longer than before and her hip-fire bullets are slower, just like they were in the beta. I think this is partially to promote her quote-unquote meta play, because for a while she's had like best quote-unquote hip-fire healing potential out of everybody in the game. I don't know. I really don't know. Otherwise, she's just about as good as before, despite her grenade doing slightly less damage. It does refresh earlier, so it kind of balances out. Bastion. Tank is gone. Yup, that's right, no more tank at all. Even though if you look in the assault form, it says tank on the bottom left and uses the UI elements from it. Side by side. Great job, guys. You know how to make UI. Instead, you have a mortar ultimate that shoots 3 times max in large space, taking 2 hits to kill. This is garbage, frankly. It forces Bastion to stay in place and the player can't see themselves like with Junk's ult. No more self-repair. Honestly, I was a fan of the Ranger mode anyway, so the loss of self-repair is meh, and the sticky grenade is kind of fun anyway. Assault mode is what he gained instead. This is basically a cross between tank and turret, moving slowly while firing in turret mode. And again, I kinda like this. It's somewhat fun, plus he gets a 20% damage reduction when in assault or ultimate form. I can't complain too much about this. Frick. Brig lost her stun, but can inspire off of the shield bash. F***ing bite me, devs. She didn't deserve that one. Hog has almost no changes. McCree. Because he's still McCree. Basically, he had his flashbang taken away. This is only ever going to be a positive thing, although, frankly, the replacement is somehow worse. Magnetic Grenade is what they gave him. A literal seeking explosive that deals 130 damage. What in the frick, devs? This is far too high, at least to me, when McCree still deals 70 damage per bullet. Oh yeah, he has 10% less charge time for Deadeye too, with it charging faster after it's active for more than 2 seconds. Literally doubling the amount of health it consumes while homing in on somebody at that point. And Fan the Hammer fires faster. Yay. Oh, and combat roll also gives a 50% damage reduction. This is an abomination of a character that was supposed to be a rework of an abomination. Just no. Doomfist. You stink now. His health was increased to 450 from 250, no more rising uppercut with nerfs to rocket punch damage and range. Power block is the replacement ability he got, blocking all incoming damage by 80% while slowing him by 35%, giving him increased rocket punch damage when it denies 100 damage total. Honestly, this isn't too far out there, so I give it a solid whatever, the original next time. Seismic Slam has been changed to launch the player forward, creating shockwave that deals 50 damage on landing, and is cancelable. Honestly, these abilities stunning previously was a problem, so I'm glad they don't now. Too bad Hog still exists. Meteor Strike damage was reduced by half at max, except for the dead center, which is honestly fine by me. That requires skill as it's a small area, with enemies hit being slowed by half for 2 seconds. This isn't bad. Not too bad at all. My hatred for Doomfist aside, as a skim milk DPS, this is an interesting loadout. I wish it had been dedicated to a new hero instead of recycling things, but this is at least not total cancer. Mei. She no longer freezes people, except for her ultimate, instead slowing them by 50% consistently. This isn't the worst, as Mei was an extremely inflammatory character that also had balancing issues. Oh well. Mercy. She gets in-air mobility options. She needed this. Thanks. You're only 6 years too late! Orisa. Not gonna lie, I wanted to put in a clip of childish screaming here, but I won't. Why, devs? Why did you scrap a perfectly good hero? Orisa is just gone entirely. She has no barrier, she has no halt, she has no supercharger ultimate. Why? To replace these, she has an augmented main fire that does double damage on headshot, changing into an overheat instead of clip-based. The overheat is nice, but here go the new additions. Aside from her gaining 150 health total, 75 of that in armor, Fortify now gives 120 overheal and prevents crits on her, also reducing main weapon heating by 50%. Pretty smart, not gonna lie. Too bad it's 6 years too late! And also killing a hero! Energy Javelin, a true flying precision shot that deals 60 damage, stuns for 1/5 second, and pushes enemy back 6 meters when they're hit. Enemies take an additional 40 damage if they're pushed into a wall. Javelin Spin. This is a bullet deleter, basically, that also gives allies a 50% movement speed buff when charging forward. Her new ultimate, Terra Surge, gives her Fortify on activation, pulls in enemies near her for 4 seconds, and deals up to 500 damage depending on charge time when it's set off. Also slowing enemies hit by 30% and dealing damage over time. Jeebus, that's a lot of effects. But, good loadout. Why not use it for a new hero instead of trashing one of the best heavies in the game? Reinhardt. Rogadine! Yeah, he has a slight nerf to barrier, increased charge mobility, and 2 hammer flares deal 90 damage instead of 100. Boy, am I glad they didn't just gut Ryan on the table in front of the player base like they did to Orisa. Hog. Hog can't be stunned out of whole hog. F*** you, devs. F*** you. You buff his self-heal by 50? Then this? Sombra. Hack happens every 4 seconds, no longer makes your decloak. It only makes Sombra flash now, and she is visible from a longer distance away. It only disables people for 1 second on top of it, revealing them through walls and providing 40% damage buff to hack targets for Sombra herself, which extends to the entire 8-second duration of the radar to allies. Her ult now deals a flat 40% damage to enemies it hits as well. Honestly, I don't understand why she's completely and always invisible, or why her hack is honestly somewhat negligible now. It's really just a cancel button, but otherwise this is somewhat unoffensive. Sombra needed a buff, but it's hard to tell if this is going to make her a viable hero, or simply one of the more broken ones. Winston. He got an alt-fire projectile for more range. Too bad it's 6 years too late! Zenyatta. His melees are more powerful, dealing 45 instead of 30. What? Is this a slap in the face or a bad movie reference? Now the new heroes. Kiriko. Kiriko has an instant deploy immortality field. I kid you not. Really? We needed another Zarya? Her ability to move through walls to allies within range is interesting, with it being a literal teleport. And her heals require line of sight, although her kunai are frankly, they have the same hitbox as Genji's throwing stars, meaning they're absolutely ludicrous and deal heavy headshot damage. Kiriko's ultimate is a walkway, forward only for short range that gives a boost in damage, movement speed, and reload speed to those in the area, because this game enjoys dive comp, because defensive style players apparently. Junker Queen. Okay, yeah, I don't know if I really want to even talk about this one, as it was almost obvious her introduction video was a stunt for publicity and to get in with the feminist community. I get it, but the animation wasn't even good. It was obviously high budget visually, but the writing was total garbage, man. She has a shout that gives over heal 50 in total. She can throw her knife with alt fire and pull people back that she hits with it. She also has a hard slash with her axe that deals damage, and like her quick melee, deals damage over time. Her ultimate is a forward rush. Yeah, another one. Who would have guessed? Her blades spin around her and deal damage over time to enemies. Oh yeah, her passive allows her to heal herself from damage over time done to enemies, which, honestly, I will take this style ability over the self-heal that Hog has, which is basically just a get-out-of-jail-free button. Sojourn 72. I'm not going to bother here. She's Soldier but female and an alt fire that can deal crits, with her ult giving her constant charge to set alt fire. Thanks for another vanilla bullshit, Blizzard. Really needed another one in the game. Yeah, Overwatch 2 says screw you two defensive players if you hadn't guessed. Why, I'm not really sure. The entire fetish of this game is now to force players forward endlessly with little strategy aside from hitting your frick you button to boost allies in a charge. Bunker has already basically been dead in Overwatch 1 thanks to balancing, so why was it necessary to piss on its grave too? Either way, they're a bigger fish to fry. Luckily, there's been some rebalancing done from the beta, the healers are a bit better at doing their jobs, and it feels like a team can be a little more cohesive. But having one heavy is still a little bit of an issue to me personally. I still say the DPS should have been the ones to lose a slot on the team, but that's mainly because of issues with the player base more than anything else and my personal hatred for them on some level, as most of them are lousy on a good day. The larger issue here is some of the other changes, like player level being removed in the battle passes. Sure, I kind of understand player levels in Overwatch weren't that useful, but they did give loot boxes, and you could also judge players in your teams based on level. See a Platinum player? They're probably going to let you down. See a Goldie on the enemy team? Run. Just run. See a Diamond player? More than likely they'll dab on your dead body. See a No-Star Bronze? It's a Smurf or a hacker. These were somewhat reliable, honestly, later in Overwatch, but now there's no way to so much as tell until the Hanzo only gets headshots for the entire match against them, which is now possible thanks to the increased projectile sizes for almost everyone in Overwatch 2. This is a minor issue, really, because it's just annoying, as now with Overwatch 2 being free to play, the amount of bots is just going to explode. That's one of the things Overwatch having a price point did for it. Look at Apex, Halo Infinite, etc. They're plagued by bots and hackers so badly you can't have a match without them. Sure, Overwatch had bots, but they were far more infrequent. Then there's the Battle Pass. I was originally going to complain about this, but Kiriko was the first Battle Pass level in the Free Pass. If this keeps up, I won't talk about it again, but somehow I see them being pushed further back over time, to the higher tiers, and only in the Premium Pass. Lastly is the banishment of hard counters. I don't understand this, I really don't. One of the points in a hero shooter is to have unique gameplay styles that clash with each other, some being more effective in certain situations and terrains than others. With the deletion of hard counters, there is a chance that Overwatch 2 could revolve more around hero familiarity and raw skill, but so far it seems more like Blizzard wants to make heroes that already only have 4 abilities apiece more accessible to newer players. You already have 2 flavors of vanilla bullshit, this isn't necessary. Honestly, it would be far more productive to create more unique and complex characters so the long-term players have more to dive into and learn, with counters allowing the newer players to combat them. This isn't rocket science, and after 6 years I would have thought the hero team in Overwatch would have learned a few new tricks. On the contrary, they appear to be either out of ideas or simply too busy counting the cash coming in from competitive contracts to care about the player base. Obviously won't listen at the least. So far, there hasn't been anything released for the campaign of Overwatch 2 yet, and honestly, since this is the projection section, I think I should get on with it and say that I don't believe it'll happen. Perhaps 2 or 3 episodes will be released, but somehow I see this section being taken out around back and shot so Activision can sell its corpse for drug money. Aside from this, there's the battle passes. Around the same time the story mode of Overwatch 2 is scrapped, the paid battle passes will more than likely be the only way to access new heroes, and near the very end of the pass at that. This is a very safe bet, frankly, looking at other free-to-play games that use this exact same formula. That will go on for about 4 seasons, then heroes people didn't outright shell out for will appear in a bundle that costs more than the original Overwatch game. Each getting grouped together over time to gank people out of cash, as almost all free-to-play games do. Except for, honestly, Splitgate or Paladins. Because that's actually okay free-to-play, even with the bots. Why is this such a big deal? Overwatch is a hero shooter, with each new hero having a specific set of abilities and playstyle. Forcing people to pay $30 for a battle pass they can't finish without being a no-lifer, or shelling out another $50 to unlock the thing without playing, is downright unethical and immoral, and precisely why Overwatch 2 was changed to a free-to-play model. Once a few seasons go by, then to get to the heroes or cosmetics you miss, it would probably be another $20 to $40 on top of it in those bundles I was talking about. You see how this is adding up? The point in this sequel is not to provide a sequel, it is to provide maximum profit. And now it's more than likely for Daddy Microsuck. I do have one upside for this whole thing at least, however. Originally it seemed like the entire point of the quote-unquote open beta for Overwatch 2 was simply to rob people blind, which is exactly what it did, in essence, and anyone blind enough to ignore that, I pity outright. The beta altogether did seem to be iterated on, although I still believe the results of which were not taken from the open beta that people paid for in the least. The open beta was in fact only jingling keys in front of the player base and charging overly much for an unfinished game, charging as much as the normal edition of Overwatch, plus $10, for a glorified event that lasted just under 2 weeks, without so much as being worth the time and blatantly being a screw you to the player base. On the flip side, healers are more effective, and tanks can handle themselves a little bit in Overwatch 2, although I personally believe the gameplay is quicker than necessary, and DPS take as little skill as before to play, if not even less. At the least, we've kept status quo to some extent, but that only highlights even more that Overwatch 2 is a waste of time and money, even if it's free technically, because Overwatch 2 is a hollow representation of corporate agenda, and can hardly be called a proper sequel, as there is no new content. And no, 2 maps and 1 new mode do not count. Sadly, this is the state of things. Absolute nonsense and bullshit. With that over with, I only have one thing to say. Welcome to Overwatch 2, the shittening.